What we're looking at here is a Sumerian tablet that actually shows the tree of life, flanked by divine beings. You can see here the Anunnaki on each side.
What if fragments of broken clay tablets, buried beneath the sands of Mesopotamia for thousands of years, were suddenly able to tell a story no one had fully understood before? For generations, historians, archaeologists, and linguists have studied the mysterious records left behind by the ancient Sumerians. Many of these tablets were damaged. Some were missing entire sections. Others sat forgotten in museum archives because no one knew how they connected to the larger picture. But recently, a new wave of artificial intelligence has changed the game. Instead of examining tablets one by one, advanced AI systems began comparing thousands of fragments at the same time. They analyzed patterns, reconstructed missing sections, and linked texts that had been separated for decades, or even centuries. The result wasn't a single shocking discovery. It was something far more intriguing. Ancient stories that once seemed disconnected suddenly appeared to be part of a much larger narrative. And at the center of that narrative was a question that continues to divide experts today. Were the Sumerians simply recording myths, or were they preserving memories of events they believed had actually happened? To understand why this debate has returned, we have to travel back more than 5,000 years. Long before the rise of Greece, Rome, or Egypt's greatest dynasties, the Sumerians were building cities across Mesopotamia. They developed one of the world's earliest writing systems and recorded their knowledge on clay tablets using wedge-shaped symbols known as cuneiform. These tablets contained everything from trade records and laws to religious stories and accounts of kings. The challenge was that cuneiform is incredibly difficult to translate. The same symbol can carry multiple meanings depending on context. Entire sections of many tablets are damaged or missing. For decades, scholars could only study small pieces of a much larger puzzle. AI approached the problem differently. Rather than focusing on individual tablets, it compared thousands of texts simultaneously, identifying recurring phrases, patterns, and connections that human researchers might never notice on their own. As those connections emerged, one particular theme began attracting attention. The Sumerian texts seemed to describe humanity in a way that was far more complex than many people expected. Instead of presenting humans as a single group created in one moment, some writings appeared to describe multiple categories of people. Certain terms were repeatedly associated with labor and service. Others were linked to leadership, knowledge, or specialized responsibilities. At first, historians viewed these distinctions as symbolic language. Ancient cultures often used different labels to describe social classes or occupations. But when AI traced the same patterns across numerous texts, the descriptions became harder to ignore. Some records seemed to suggest that different groups were created for different purposes. Whether those references were symbolic, social, or something else entirely remains a subject of debate. Yet the recurring theme was unmistakable. Humanity was not always portrayed as one unified category. This idea becomes even more fascinating when we encounter two terms that appear throughout Sumerian literature, Lulu and Sagiga. For many years, these words were translated simply as references to people. However, AI analysis revealed that they often appeared in very specific contexts. One group was frequently connected to labor and daily work. Another appeared in passages associated with organized society and responsibility. Some descriptions even speak of individuals who performed their duties without question, carrying out assigned tasks as part of a larger system. Modern readers have interpreted these passages in many different ways. Some believe they refer to ordinary social structures within ancient civilization. Others see hints of something more mysterious, an attempt to describe distinct categories of humanity. No consensus exists, but the discussion has reignited interest in texts that many assumed had already revealed all their secrets. Then another name begins appearing again and again throughout the tablets. A place called Edin. Most people immediately think of the biblical Garden of Eden. Yet in Sumerian records, Eden seems to be something quite different. Rather than a paradise, it is often portrayed as a managed region connected to work, cultivation, and organization. Several texts describe activities taking place there that sound almost like preparation or testing. Groups are formed, assigned responsibilities, and sent outward. Some succeed. Others vanish from the records entirely. A few passages describe people being carried away by rivers. Others mention migrations toward distant mountains before the trail suddenly disappears. Historians generally view these accounts as symbolic stories or references to real population movements. However, alternative interpretations have emerged. Some researchers speculate that the texts preserve memories of different stages in humanity's development. According to this theory, Edin functioned as a center where groups were organized before spreading into the wider world. There is no direct evidence proving such claims. Yet the recurring references make Edin one of the most discussed locations in Sumerian literature. As AI continued linking additional tablets together, another figure gradually moved to the center of the story. His name was Enki. In Sumerian tradition, Enki is the god of wisdom, knowledge, and creation. Unlike many other divine figures, Enki is often portrayed as a supporter of humanity. Several ancient stories describe him helping humans overcome limitations and teaching them skills that improved their lives. Some interpretations suggest that early human groups depended entirely on external guidance. They could work and survive, but they struggled to expand and develop independently. Over time, according to these stories, Enki introduced changes. The new humans were said to be more capable, more adaptable, and better able to shape their own future. Most importantly, they could sustain themselves and pass their knowledge to future generations. Whether taken literally or symbolically, the message is clear. Humanity was evolving. And from that transformation emerged one of the most fascinating figures in ancient mythology, a man named Adapa. Unlike ordinary people, Adapa was described as exceptionally wise. He could think, reason, and understand the deeper workings of the world around him. Many stories portray him as the finest example of what humanity could become. But his greatest test was still ahead. According to the legend, Adapa was summoned before the heavenly ruler Anu himself. There, he was offered something extraordinary, a chance at immortality. Yet before making the journey, Enki warned him not to eat or drink anything placed before him. Trusting the advice, Adapa obeyed. Even when eternal life stood within reach, he refused it. And with that decision, the opportunity was lost forever. In Sumerian tradition, this moment became one of the earliest explanations for why humans possess wisdom yet remain mortal. It is a story about knowledge, obedience, and the consequences of choice. But Adapa's story was only the beginning. Because as humanity grew stronger and more knowledgeable, a conflict was beginning to unfold among the gods themselves. And according to the tablets, that conflict would eventually lead to one of the most famous catastrophes in all ancient history, the Great Flood. As humanity continued to grow, the ancient stories describe a growing divide among the gods themselves. At the center of this conflict stood two powerful figures, Enki and Enlil. According to Sumerian tradition, they represented two very different visions for humanity's future. Enki is often portrayed as a protector of human progress. He believed people should learn, develop skills, and gain knowledge. Throughout many ancient stories, he appears as a teacher, one who helps humanity advance beyond its original limitations. Enlil, however, is presented very differently. In many accounts, he is the guardian of order and authority. Stability mattered above everything else. From this perspective, too much knowledge could become dangerous. If humans gained excessive freedom, they might become difficult to control. Whether these stories reflect real political struggles, religious symbolism, or pure mythology remains uncertain. But one theme appears repeatedly. Knowledge was power, and not everyone was meant to possess it. The tablets describe how certain groups learned agriculture, allowing them to grow crops and establish permanent settlements. Others were taught writing, preserving information for future generations. Some gained knowledge of metalworking, creating stronger tools and transforming entire societies. Yet this knowledge was not distributed equally. Different groups received different responsibilities. Some became priests and scribes. Others became builders, farmers, or laborers. To many researchers, this reflects the structure of early civilization. But alternative interpretations suggest something more deliberate, a carefully managed system in which information itself became a tool of control. Then came the event that changed everything: the Great Flood. Flood stories appear in cultures all around the world, but some of the oldest known versions come from Mesopotamia itself. In the Sumerian accounts, humanity had multiplied rapidly. Cities were expanding. Society was becoming increasingly complex. And according to the stories, this growth created tension among the gods. Enlil decided that humanity had become a problem. The solution was drastic. A great flood would sweep across the land and erase civilization. But there was one obstacle. Enki. Unable to openly oppose the decision, he secretly warned a righteous man named Ziusadra. In later Akkadian traditions, a similar figure appears as Utnapishtim. Thousands of years later, many people would notice similarities between these stories and the biblical account of Noah. The warning was simple. Build a vessel. Prepare for disaster. Protect life. When the flood arrived, the world was transformed. Rivers burst beyond their banks. Settlements vanished beneath the water. Entire communities disappeared. For those who survived, nothing would ever be the same again. Whether these stories describe an actual ancient flood, a series of regional disasters, or symbolic religious teachings remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Yet the flood narrative survived for thousands of years, passed from one generation to another. And it wasn't the only mystery preserved within the tablets. Another controversial topic emerged when researchers examined descriptions of ancient technology. Certain passages seem surprisingly unusual for texts written thousands of years ago. They mention flying objects, brilliant lights in the sky, and powerful forces capable of destroying entire cities. Some describe vehicles moving through the heavens. Others speak of intense heat and energy that could devastate the land. Mainstream historians generally interpret these passages as mythological imagery, symbolic language, or exaggerated descriptions of natural events. Ancient writers often used dramatic metaphors to explain storms, celestial phenomena, and military conflicts. However, alternative researchers see something different. They argue that these stories may preserve distant memories of advanced knowledge that later generations no longer understood. There is currently no evidence proving the existence of lost ancient technology. But the debate continues because many descriptions remain open to interpretation. What makes the discussion particularly fascinating is not the technology itself, but who had access to knowledge. The tablets repeatedly suggest that information was restricted. Some groups were taught specialized skills. Others were intentionally kept away from them. Knowledge, in these stories, was never simply information. It was influence. It was authority. And perhaps most importantly, it was control. As AI connected additional fragments, another intriguing pattern emerged. Several texts appeared to describe different categories of people performing different functions within society. Some were associated with construction, mining, and physical labor. Others were linked to religious ceremonies, administration, and astronomy. A few passages even describe distinct appearances, lifestyles, and environments. Modern scholars generally view these references as social classifications rather than separate human creations. Yet because the descriptions appear across multiple texts, they continue to attract attention from researchers and enthusiasts alike. The deeper AI explored the tablets, the more one conclusion became apparent. The Sumerians were intensely focused on observation, not only of the world around them, but of the sky above. For centuries, priests and astronomers carefully recorded movements of stars, planets, eclipses, and celestial events. Without telescopes or modern instruments, they created some of the earliest astronomical records in human history. To them, the heavens were not merely beautiful. They were meaningful. Patterns in the sky were believed to contain messages, warnings, and signs about the future. This brings us to one of the most controversial names associated with Sumerian mythology: Nibiru. Over the years, Nibiru has become the subject of countless theories. Some interpretations describe it as a celestial body following a long cycle through the heavens. Others argue that the term simply referred to a crossing point, a star, or an astronomical concept rather than a hidden planet. Mainstream astronomy does not support claims of a mysterious planet returning every 3,600 years. Nevertheless, references to Nibiru continue to fuel debate because ancient texts use language that remains difficult to interpret with complete certainty. Was it a real astronomical object? A symbolic idea? A religious concept? No definitive answer exists. And perhaps that uncertainty is part of what keeps the mystery alive. So what exactly did AI discover? The answer may be both simpler and more fascinating than many people expect. AI did not uncover a secret vault hidden beneath the desert. It did not reveal undeniable proof of forgotten civilizations or extraterrestrial creators. What it did was connect thousands of fragmented pieces of information that had never been examined together on such a massive scale. Stories once scattered across museums, archives, and archaeological collections suddenly appeared connected. Patterns emerged. Themes repeated themselves. Questions that seemed isolated became part of a much larger conversation. Yet the most important mystery remains unsolved. Are these stories myths created to explain the world? Or do they preserve distant memories of real events that became transformed over thousands of years? Historians generally favor the mythological explanation. The stories fit within broader patterns found throughout ancient religious traditions. But others believe fragments of historical truth may still be hidden beneath the symbolism. Perhaps the real value of AI is not that it provided final answers. Perhaps it simply allowed us to ask better questions. Questions about the origins of civilization. Questions about how knowledge was preserved. Questions about why similar stories appear across different cultures separated by vast distances and centuries of time. The ancient Sumerians may never have imagined that people thousands of years in the future would still be reading their words. Yet here we are, still debating, still searching, still trying to understand what they were attempting to tell us. And maybe that is the greatest mystery of all. The tablets survived. The questions survived. And the search for answers continues. What do you think? Were the Sumerians recording symbolic myths designed to teach lessons about humanity? Or could fragments of forgotten history be hidden within those ancient stories? Share your thoughts below, and if you enjoyed this exploration into one of history's greatest mysteries, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for the next journey into the secrets of the ancient world.